My family excluded me from Dad's retirement party. We don't want you showing up with grease under your nails. So I stopped being their free plumber and took the trip I was going to gift my dad. When they saw the photos I posted, they lost their minds. Sup, Reddit. Apparently owning your own business means nothing when your family needs a toilet fixed at 2 a.m. for free. Again, name's Sean, 33 male. I've been a licensed plumber for 11 years. Built my business from nothing, got my master certification at 27, and now I run a crew of 4 guys who handle everything from basic drain clogs to full commercial build-outs. Started in my uncle's shop when I was 19, spent years crawling under houses and learning the trade the hard way. I'm good at what I do, which is exactly why my family has treated me like their personal 24/7 emergency repair service since the day I got my license. The requests started small. My mother needed help installing a new faucet. My father wanted me to look at a toilet that was running. Normal family stuff that I was happy to do because that's what family does, right? You help each other out. But somewhere along the way, helping out became on-call free labor for anything water-related in a 50-mile radius. Let me give you the highlight reel. My sister Haley got a burst pipe repair I drove 40 minutes to fix at 2 in the morning in January. Crawled under her house in freezing weather with a flashlight and a pipe cutter. That job would have been an $800 emergency call if she'd hired anyone else. She made me coffee and said thanks. My brother Colin had me replumb his entire basement when he finished it as a man cave. Moved all the drain lines, added a beverage station with sink and ice maker hookup, installed a full bathroom with a walk-in shower. That job took me 4 weekends and would have been $8,000 if I'd charged commercial rates. He bought me a pizza. Then there was Christmas Eve, when his wife Kelsey put a potato down the garbage disposal, and I had to come over and snake it out while everyone else ate dinner. My parents' house has basically been maintained by me for free since I turned 22. Water heater replacement. Whole house repiping when the galvanized lines started corroding. 2 bathroom renovations. A kitchen sink upgrade. I even installed a fancy rain shower system my mother saw in a magazine and decided she absolutely had to have. $400 in parts I paid for myself because she said they couldn't afford it right then. I never complained. Just showed up and did the work. Sometimes I'd get a thank you. I figured this was what families did. I helped with plumbing. My brother Colin, the accountant, probably helped with their taxes and financial planning. My sister Haley, who works in event planning, probably helped coordinate family gatherings. Except I later found out Colin had never done their taxes for free. Not once. He referred them to his firm, and they paid full price like any other client. Haley had never planned a family event without invoicing for her consultation time and expenses. I was the only one providing free labor, the only one expected to drop everything and show up at all hours. Then came the week before my father's retirement party, and that's when everything went sideways. My mother called on a Sunday evening while I was watching the game. She said Dad's retirement party was coming up on Saturday, and before the guests arrived, she needed me to look at a small leak under the bathroom sink. Just a quick fix. 20 minutes. Tops. I drove 40 minutes to their house on a Tuesday evening after working a 10-hour day installing a water main for a new restaurant. My back was killing me. My hands were raw from working with copper fittings all day, and I wanted nothing more than to sit down and eat something that didn't come from a vending machine. The small leak was not small. The supply lines were corroded so badly the braided steel was separating from the fittings. The shutoff valve was frozen solid from calcium buildup, the kind where you don't even try to turn it because you know the stem will snap. The P-trap had a hairline crack letting sewer gas seep into the room. I could smell it the second I opened the cabinet. 2.5 hours later, I finished. New supply lines, new shutoff valves, new P-trap. Parts I paid for out of my own pocket because driving to the supply house would have made a long night even longer. $63 on my credit card. While I was finishing up, putting away my tools, I could hear my mother on the phone in the kitchen. Her voice carried in that house. She was talking about the caterer confirming for Saturday, the seating chart being finalized, making sure Uncle Dale knew the time had changed to 4 instead of 5. I walked into the kitchen, still holding a pipe wrench, and asked what time I should show up Saturday. I figured I'd come early, help set up chairs or whatever, since that's what I always did at family events. My mother's face did this thing, this frozen half smile that I'd seen before when she was about to deliver bad news. She set down her phone slowly. She said the party was actually pretty small, just immediate family. They were keeping it small and manageable. I pointed out that I was immediate family, her own son, and I'd literally just heard her mention Uncle Dale, who was my father's second cousin living 3 states away, a man who showed up to family events maybe once every 4 years. My mother fumbled for words. Started talking about space limitations, about how they'd already given the caterer final numbers and it would be awkward to change them now, about how the seating chart was done. I stood there in my work clothes, hands still dirty from fixing their plumbing, and watched my mother explain why I wasn't invited to my own father's retirement party, the party that was happening in 4 days. In the house I'd spent the last 2.5 hours repairing, for free, like I'd done for 11 years. She said it wasn't personal, said they'd do something with me separately, maybe dinner the following week. I didn't argue, didn't yell, just nodded, packed up my tools in complete silence, and walked out to my truck. She followed me outside, still making excuses. She said I was being dramatic, said she didn't understand why I was upset since it was just a party. I got in my truck, started the engine, and drove away without responding. Here's what she didn't know. What nobody knew. 3 months earlier, I'd booked a week-long trip to Costa Rica as my father's retirement gift. A nice resort on the Pacific coast called the Playa Azul Beach Club. Ocean view room upgraded from standard to premium because I wanted it to be special. All-inclusive meals. Airport transfers. The whole package. I'd been saving for over a year. Every extra job, every side project, every bit of weekend overtime went into the Costa Rica fund. $2,300 total. I'd coordinated with my business partner, Spencer, to cover my jobs while I was gone. I was going to surprise Dad at the party. Tell him we were leaving the following month, just father and son. A trip to celebrate his 35 years of hard work. I'd even bought a cheesy Hawaiian shirt to wear when I presented the tickets. Had the whole moment planned in my head, but I wasn't invited to the party. I sat in my apartment that night, staring at the resort confirmation on my laptop. $2,300 already paid. Non-refundable deposit. A gift for a man who apparently didn't need me at his big celebration. The thing that really got to me wasn't the money. It was what I figured out somewhere around midnight while I was still sitting there in the dark. They didn't forget to invite me. They decided not to. There's a difference. What they did was deliberate. I was an afterthought. Someone they specifically chose to exclude while still expecting me to fix their plumbing 4 days before the party. My best friend Zach called around 9. Zach and I have been tight since 7th grade. He's an electrician now, runs his own crew, and has the kind of dry humor that gets us both in trouble at exactly the wrong moments. Also the kind of friend who showed up with his truck when my ex moved out. No questions asked. I told him what happened. Zach was quiet for a few seconds. Then he asked if the reservation was locked to my dad's name or if I could change it. I pulled up the booking confirmation. Premium room for 2 guests. Names could be changed up to 48 hours before arrival for a $25 administrative fee. Zach goes, "Dude, we're going to Costa Rica. Your dad can celebrate his retirement by finding out what an actual plumber charges." I laughed for the first time in hours. Then I changed the reservation. Sean Cross and Zachary Webb departing Saturday at 6 a.m., the exact same day as my father's retirement party. The alarm went off at 4 in the morning on Saturday. Zach picked me up at 4:45 in his truck, both of us running on black coffee and spite. By the time my family would be gathering at my parents' house for pastries and brunch, we were 30,000 feet in the air watching the sun rise through the airplane window. Zach ordered a ginger ale and started reading a fishing magazine. I stared at the clouds and honestly just felt relieved. My phone was on Do Not Disturb. Only 3 names could break through. Zach, my business partner Spencer, and Mrs. Brown, my elderly neighbor who watched my apartment when I traveled. My family was not on the favorites list. Hadn't been for years. The only calls I ever got from them were requests to fix something or complaints about something I hadn't fixed fast enough. At some point, I'd stopped adding them to favorites and never changed it back. We landed in Costa Rica around noon local time. The humidity hit us the second we stepped off the plane, but it felt good. The resort shuttle was waiting at the airport, driver holding a sign with our names like we were somebody important. The resort was incredible. Palm trees lining every pathway. Infinity pool that seemed to spill directly into the Pacific Ocean. Our room had a balcony that belonged on a postcard, with 2 chairs facing the water and nothing but blue horizon as far as you could see. I stood there for a solid 5 minutes just taking it in. First time in a long time where nobody was asking me for anything. Zach came out onto the balcony with the all-inclusive menu and said we were eating shrimp for every meal since it was included. We changed into swim trunks and hit the beach with fruit smoothies that tasted like vacation in a glass. Meanwhile, back home, the party was apparently going great, until it wasn't. I got the full story later from Tony, a plumber I knew professionally, who ended up getting the emergency call. Tony's been in the business almost as long as me, runs a crew on the north side of town, and has zero reason to make stuff up. About 2 hours into the party, Someone flushed the upstairs toilet, the same bathroom I'd fixed 4 days earlier. What my mother hadn't mentioned when she asked for the repair? She'd been flushing flushable wipes down that toilet for months, a package per week. Every plumber knows these things don't actually break down. They just accumulate until something catastrophic happens. The wipes had been building up in the main sewer line for weeks, maybe months, creating a dam just waiting for the worst possible moment. The toilet backed up violently. Not a slow rise, Tony said. A surge. Water poured over the rim onto the tile floor, carrying everything that had been sitting in the bowl. Within minutes, it was seeping through the subfloor and dripping through the dining room ceiling below. Brown-tinted water, the kind that leaves no doubt what you're dealing with, dripping onto the dessert table, onto guests' plates, onto my father's retirement cake. My mother's first instinct was to call me. The calls went straight to voicemail. My father tried. Voicemail. Haley tried from her cell. Colin tried from his. Even Kelsey tried. All voicemail. They finally gave up and called an actual plumbing company. On a Saturday, Memorial Day weekend, when every plumber in the region was either at a barbecue or charging holiday emergency rates. The dispatch fee alone was $350. Tony said when he pulled into the driveway, my mother was standing on the front porch practically shaking, going off about where her son was and why he'd sent a stranger. He told her he had no idea who her son was, and he was just there to fix the plumbing. He assessed the situation. Mainline blockage requiring a powered snake and possibly hydrojetting, water damage to ceiling and carpet. The total bill for Saturday alone was $875. And he told them the main line would need follow-up work, probably another $2,000. Tony said my mother kept saying she shouldn't have to pay because her son was a plumber. Tony told her that her son wasn't there, and the sewage wasn't going to wait for a family discount. The party ended around 4 o'clock. Guests made awkward excuses and left early. My father spent the rest of his retirement celebration running a shop vac while my mother cycled between fury and tears. 35 years at the same company, and his big day ended with the smell of raw sewage and an unexpected 4-figure bill. I didn't know any of this was happening. I was 3,000 miles away, lying in a beach chair, watching the sunset. Zach was next to me going on about whether sand crabs were technically crabs or some other kind of creature. That night, Zach posted a photo to Instagram. The two of us on the beach, smoothies in hand, sunset blazing behind us. He captioned it, "When you're not invited to the party, you become the party. Costa Rica with my boy at Shawcross." Then he tagged my entire family, every single one of them. I didn't find out about the tag until the next morning when I finally checked my phone and found the notification apocalypse waiting for me. 23 missed calls, 51 text messages, 3 voicemails that I could tell from the preview weren't going to be pleasant listening experiences. The text told the story through increasingly angry messages. From my mother, "Sean, where are you? Call me immediately." Then, "This is an emergency. Why aren't you answering?" Then, "Your father's party is ruined. There's sewage everywhere, and you can't be bothered to pick up the phone." Then, several hours later, "Your friend posted that you're in Costa Rica? You're on vacation while we're dealing with this?" And finally, at 2 in the morning, "I can't believe I raised someone so selfish." From my father, "Son, please call home." Simple, short, disappointed. That one hit different than my mother's unhinged messages. Always did. From Colin, "Are you kidding me right now? You're in Costa Rica while mom and dad's house is flooding? What is wrong with you?" From Haley, a 5-paragraph essay about how selfish I was, how I'd abandoned the family during their worst crisis, how dad's retirement was completely ruined because I couldn't be bothered to answer my phone. She concluded by saying she was genuinely worried about my mental state, and maybe I should talk to someone. I showed Zach the messages over breakfast. He read through them slowly, took a long sip of coffee. He goes, "So I guess they found out what a plumber costs." We spent the next 6 days living our best lives, snorkeling in crystal clear water, fresh seafood at beachside restaurants, sunsets every evening that looked like someone had cranked up the color saturation on the sky. I kept my phone on DND the entire time. The notifications piled up, dozens of them, judging by the badge on the home screen. I didn't read any of them. Whatever fire was burning back home, I wasn't going to be the one to put it out. The flight home landed Sunday evening, 8 days of sun and relaxation, and I genuinely felt like a different person, clear-headed in a way I hadn't been in a long time. That lasted about 45 minutes. I pulled into my apartment complex around 9 and found a welcoming committee in the parking lot. All 5 of them. Mom, Dad, Haley, Colin, and Colin's wife, Kelsey. They were arranged around their cars like they'd been running surveillance for hours. Knowing my family, they probably had been. My mother spotted my truck first and started speed walking toward me before I even got the door open. Her face was a mix of fury and relief that would have been almost funny if I'd been in a laughing mood. Where had I been? Why didn't I answer? Did I have any idea what I'd put them through? I grabbed my duffel bag and walked past her toward my building without a word. Tan, relaxed, completely unbothered. My father cut me off at the entrance. His voice had that disappointed tone. He said we needed to talk about what happened, about the party, about me posting vacation photos while they dealt with a disaster. Said he didn't raise me to be this selfish. I stopped and turned to face all of them, asked what disaster he meant. The plumbing emergency, the ruined party, the thousands in damage, the fact that I'd ignored their calls for 8 days. I nodded. Then I told them the Costa Rica trip was supposed to be his retirement gift. I was going to surprise him at the party, hand him the tickets in front of everyone. Father-son trip. Nobody said anything. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Colin actually took a step backward. Even Kelsey, who never showed emotion about anything, looked uncomfortable. But I wasn't invited, so I took Zach instead. The silence lasted long enough to hear traffic on the street behind us. My mother started sputtering about the seating chart, the catering numbers, how they didn't think I'd mind. I held up my hand. 11 years. I've fixed your plumbing for free for 11 years. Every leak, every clog, every broken fixture. 4 days before this party, I was in your bathroom replacing parts I paid for. And then I found out I wasn't invited. Colin stepped forward, puffing his chest. That stopped working when we were teenagers. He said none of that was an excuse for ignoring the phone calls when they needed me. I asked when the last time was that any of them called me for something other than free labor. No answer. I laid it out. From now on, they could call my business line during normal hours. I'd schedule them like any customer, charge them like any customer. Emergency rate was $250 just to show up. Weekends were time and a half. My mother looked like I'd slapped her. She asked if I was really going to charge my own family. I said I was done being their unpaid employee. I walked to my apartment door, unlocked it, and turned back. Told them they could stay in the parking lot as long as they wanted, but if anyone knocked on my door, I'd call the police. Then I went inside, threw the deadbolt, and exhaled. Through the window, I watched them argue with each other for another 30 minutes before finally leaving. I took a long shower and went to bed. I figured that would be the end of it. They'd be angry for a while. We'd avoid each other during holidays, and eventually things would settle into some kind of distant truce. That's how these things usually work, right? I was wrong. What happened next came in stages. Each stage was worse than the last. Each stage made it clearer they weren't going to stop until I either caved or made them stop. It started with the phone calls and the lies. My business partner, Spencer, had handled things well while I was gone. Spencer's been with me for 6 years. Started as an apprentice and worked his way up to co-running the operation. Good plumber, better person. He told me my mother had called the business line 9 times while I was in Costa Rica. Every single time, she demanded he personally go to their house and fix the problem as a family favor. She said he worked for her son, so he should help the family. Spencer politely explained that the family favor rate was the same as the regular rate and quoted her the numbers. She hung up every single time. Spencer said by call 7, he was timing how fast she slammed the phone. The record was 3 seconds. Tony ended up doing the main line repair. Charged them $3,200 total when you added up the emergency visit, the follow-up hydrojetting, and the parts. Reasonable for the scope of work. My mother told everyone who would listen that Tony had ripped them off, that her own son would have done it for free if he wasn't being vindictive, that Tony had probably conspired with me to overcharge them as some kind of coordinated revenge scheme. Word travels fast in the trades community. We all know each other. We refer jobs back and forth. Tony told me about my mother's accusations over lunch at a place we both liked near the supply house. He was mostly laughing, but there was an edge to his voice. Being accused of scamming customers isn't great for anyone's reputation. He asked what was going on with my family. I gave him the abbreviated version. He nodded and said he'd never take another call from that address. The family didn't let up. They tried different angles. My sister Haley showed up at a job site 2 weeks after I got back. I was doing a bathroom renovation for a longtime client named Deborah, replacing the shower valve and updating the fixtures. When Haley walked through the front door like she owned the place, I was literally inside the wall cavity, headlamp on, torch in my hand, soldering a copper fitting. She'd tracked my location from the business social media. Deborah came into the hallway to see who'd arrived. Haley breezed past her without even acknowledging she existed. Haley announced that we needed to talk, said this had gone on long enough. Said mom and dad were devastated. Said dad hadn't been the same since the party, that he barely slept anymore, that he'd lost weight. Said I was tearing the family apart over what? A party invitation? I told her I was in the middle of a job with Live Flame and she needed to leave right now. She didn't leave. Said I was being childish. Said the silent treatment was immature. Said I needed to apologize and put this whole thing behind us so we could be a family again. Said everyone was waiting for me to come to my senses. I turned off the torch, set it down carefully on the edge of the tub, and asked if she'd apologized to me yet, for not inviting me, for planning an entire party around the idea that I didn't need to be there, for 11 years of expecting me to work for free while she invoiced clients for event planning. She said that wasn't the same thing. I asked how. She couldn't answer, just stood there with her mouth open for a few seconds before recovering and saying I was twisting everything around, making myself the victim when I was the one who'd abandoned them. Deborah, who'd been watching from the hallway with her arms crossed, finally spoke up. Asked Haley if she worked for me. Haley said no, she was my sister. Deborah said well, she was paying by the hour for my time. Her shower didn't work, and maybe my sister could come back when I wasn't standing inside her wall with a welding torch. Haley left, but not before turning at the door to tell me I was making a huge mistake, and I'd regret this for the rest of my life. Deborah waited until she heard Haley's car pull away, then came back to the bathroom doorway. Asked what that was all about. I gave her the 30-second version while I relit the torch and finished soldering the valve. She was quiet for a moment, then said her own family hadn't spoken to her in nearly a decade, and it was the most peaceful decade of her life. Said some families are more trouble than they're worth. She became one of my favorite clients after that. Referred me to 4 friends over the next few months. Colin tried the nostalgia play about a week later. Showed up at my apartment with a pizza and a 6-pack of the fancy root drink we'd liked as kids. He made his pitch. Everyone made mistakes. Maybe they should have invited me. But I was overreacting, and we needed to move forward like adults. Said he missed his brother. I let him talk for 5 minutes. Then I asked when the last time was that I'd asked him for free accounting work. He looked confused. I spelled it out. He was a CPA with his own practice. 6 employees. In 11 years, he'd never once offered to do my business taxes for free. Never helped with quarterly filings or payroll setup. He said that was different. I opened the front door and told him to leave. He sputtered about being reasonable, about making peace. I told him he had 30 seconds before I called the police. He left at 28, still muttering about how unreasonable I was. The lies started spreading after Colin's visit. I heard through mutual acquaintances that my family was telling people I'd stolen money from them, that I'd sabotaged their plumbing intentionally, that I was on drugs or having a breakdown. Zach heard the drug rumor from his cousin, who'd heard it at my mother's gym. The story was that I'd become addicted to painkillers, and that's why my behavior changed. Complete garbage, but people were believing it. Zach was furious. Said we needed to document everything. He'd been through a nasty divorce and learned about protecting yourself when people are trying to destroy your reputation. He became my unofficial advisor on building a paper trail. 3 weeks after Colin's visit, the first sign that things had gotten way out of hand came through my business. A property management company I'd worked with for 4 years suddenly canceled a standing maintenance contract, 12 units across 3 buildings. Consistent monthly work I'd been counting on. The manager, Vic, seemed uncomfortable delivering the news. Said his bosses had heard some things. About my reliability. About me abandoning family during emergencies. About me being vindictive and possibly unstable. Someone had been talking loudly to people who mattered to my livelihood. I did some digging. My mother had been running a one-woman defamation campaign. She told her church group I'd abandoned my elderly parents during a medical crisis. Told the women at her gym I'd stolen money from my parents' savings. Told the neighbors that success had gone to my head. And through some connection I never fully traced, she'd gotten word to people in my professional network. Spencer noticed the pattern. He was tracking our bookings, and the numbers were down almost 20%. When I told him what I'd found, he said it was tortious interference, a legal term for deliberately sabotaging someone's professional life. I said she was also my mother. He said those 2 things could both be true. The in-person harassment escalated too. My father showed up at a residential job site one morning and stood in the driveway for over an hour, arms crossed, refusing to leave until I came out. The homeowner, Sandra, finally threatened to call the police. He left, but she asked me to finish the job quickly and paid without the usual friendly conversation. My mother convinced a neighbor to let her into my apartment building by claiming she was visiting for my birthday. My birthday is in March. This was August. She knocked on my door for 45 minutes, alternating between tearful pleas and angry accusations. I didn't open the door. Yelled that I was calling the police. She left when she heard sirens, though they were responding to something else. The breaking point came on a Thursday morning in early September. I was meeting with a potential new commercial client, Tyson. He was opening a farm-to-table restaurant downtown and needed the kitchen plumbing evaluated before his opening. This was the kind of job I'd been working toward for years. Serious money. Tyson seemed like a good guy. We were in the middle of the walkthrough, him asking smart questions about water pressure, drainage capacity, whether his grease interceptor was sized for the volume he was planning. I was explaining the options, feeling good about this one, already running the numbers in my head. Then my brother Colin walked through the front door. He'd followed me there. Must have been sitting in his car around the corner, waiting for me to show up at my next appointment, like some kind of stalker. He didn't even acknowledge Tyson standing there. Just started talking loudly about family business like we were in our parents' kitchen instead of someone else's future restaurant. About how I was abandoning our parents. About how Dad's health was suffering because of the stress. About how everyone was worried about me. Tyson looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. The easy vibe we'd been building was gone. I told Colin to leave, that this was a business meeting with a client. He didn't. He got louder. Said I couldn't keep running from this. Said I needed to stop being so selfish and come home and apologize like a man. Tyson took a visible step backward. I could see him mentally recalculating whether he wanted to work with someone who had this kind of drama following him around. Colin moved closer until he was right in my face. He grabbed my arm and tried to physically pull me toward the door. Said we were going to talk outside like men, whether I liked it or not. I yanked my arm free. Told him flat out that if he touched me again, I'd put him on the ground. Tyson cleared his throat and said he thought we should reschedule. Said he'd call me when things settled down. He never called. I lost a $15,000 job because my brother couldn't accept being told no. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the documentation Zach had helped me build. Call logs, screenshots, dates and witnesses, a paper trail stretching back weeks. This wasn't going to stop on its own. They weren't going to get tired. They were going to keep pushing until they either broke me down or destroyed my business completely. So I called a lawyer. The lawyer's name was Amanda. Civil litigation. Zach knew her from his divorce. Said she doesn't mess around. I brought everything. Screenshots of texts and social media posts, call logs, lost contracts with dates and dollar amounts, statements from Spencer and Deborah documenting what they'd witnessed. She reviewed it, taking notes. When she finished, she asked what outcome I wanted. I said I wanted them to stop. I wanted my life back. She said, here's what we do. First, a formal cease and desist letter. Put them on notice that what they're doing has legal consequences. Document that they've been warned. Most people back off when they see letterhead from a law firm. My family was not most people. The cease and desist went out on a Tuesday. By Thursday, my mother had posted on Facebook calling me an addict who'd abandoned his elderly parents. She tagged extended family, tagged church friends, made it public, like she was daring me to do something about it. Amanda said, okay, now we escalate. She filed for a temporary restraining order based on the harassment, the job site ambushes, the apartment stalking, the pattern of showing up uninvited. The documented Facebook post helped. The order got granted. Process server caught all 4 of them. 2 days later, my father showed up at my apartment anyway, knocked on my door for 20 minutes. I didn't open it. Called the non-emergency police line. Officers came out, documented the violation, told him he needed to leave and that violating the order again could mean arrest. That incident became important later. Amanda didn't file a full defamation lawsuit. She explained that defamation cases are expensive, slow, and hard to win even when you're clearly right. What she did instead was smarter. She sent their lawyer a letter laying out everything we had documented. The letter made clear that if this went to court, we'd pursue the full damages plus legal fees. But it also offered an alternative: mediation. Their lawyer called back within a week. They wanted to talk. The mediation was at a neutral office downtown. Just a conference room with a mediator, both lawyers, and the parties involved. Spencer came as a witness. It was the first time I'd been in the same room with all of them since the parking lot. My parents looked tired. Colin sat with his arms crossed. Haley wouldn't make eye contact. Their lawyer started with the usual stuff about emotions running high and finding a path forward. Amanda cut through it. Said we weren't there to fix relationships. We were there to agree on terms that would make this stop. The terms: they stay away from me. 500 feet from my residence, my business, any job site. No contact, direct or indirect. Written retractions sent to everyone they'd lied to. And reimbursement of $14,000 in documented business losses. They pushed back. Said the money was too much. Said the retractions were humiliating. Said they shouldn't have to admit they'd done anything wrong. Amanda laid out the alternative. We had my father's restraining order violation documented. We had the Facebook posts where my mother called me a drug addict, time-stamped after the cease and desist. We had client statements, lost contracts, a clear paper trail. If we went to court, we'd ask for more than $14,000. And it would all be public record. The mediator suggested a break. When we came back, their lawyer said his clients would agree to the terms. No trial, no courtroom drama, just paperwork and a check. The retraction letters went out the following week. My mother had to send them herself, to her church group, her gym, everyone she'd told those lies to. The letters stated clearly that her claims about me stealing money, sabotaging plumbing, and using drugs were false. The check cleared 2 weeks later, $14,000. I heard through Uncle Dale they had to dip into savings to cover it. He said he thought I'd handled things the right way. The restraining order stayed in place. A judge made it permanent at a routine hearing where nobody contested anything. Walking out of that hearing, I didn't feel like I'd won some big victory. Didn't feel vindicated. Just felt done. The months that followed were quiet in the best possible way. No ambushes at job sites. No lies spreading through my professional network. No one showing up at my apartment to pound on the door. No more treating me like I owed them free labor for the rest of my life. I rebuilt what I could. Some clients came back once word got around about what really happened. The retraction letters helped. Vic from the property management company called personally to apologize and asked if I'd consider taking them back. I said I would at my standard rates. He said that was more than fair. Deborah referred me to 4 friends, all of whom became regulars. Turned out she knew a lot of people who appreciated good work and paid on time. Tony started sending overflow jobs my way when his schedule got packed. We'd grab lunch sometimes and trade war stories about difficult clients. Spencer and I hired an apprentice named Jordan, fresh out of trade school. I heard through the grapevine that my parents' social circle had shrunk significantly after the retraction letters went out. Turns out people don't like finding out they've been lied to. Colin's marriage was in serious trouble. Kelsey, who'd barely spoken 12 words to me over the years, had apparently found plenty of words once she learned the full story. Haley moved to another state for a job opportunity, though the timing suggested she was running from the local embarrassment as much as toward anything new. I didn't reach out, didn't feel the pull of obligation that had driven my decisions for so many years. My life now is actually mine. I run a business with people I respect. I have friends who actually want to be around me, not just use me, and that's more than enough for me. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.